The Munchkins are the natives of the fictional Munchkin Country in the Oz books by L. Frank Baum. They first appeared in the 1900 novel The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, in which they are described as wearing only blue. They and the non-Munchkin which accompanying them are described as being Dorothy's height. The 1939 film The Wizard of Oz depicted Munchkins as being much shorter than other residents of Oz. They are played by either adults with dwarfism or children, dressed in brightly multicolored outfits, and their land is called Munchkinland. Many of the Munchkins' voices were achieved by pre-recording some of the actors' voices onto tape, and speeding it up slightly. On November 20, 2007, the Munchkins were given a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. 7 of the surviving Munchkins actors from the film were present. As a result of the popularity of the 1939 film The Wizard of Oz, the word Munchkin has entered the English language as a reference to small children, persons with dwarfism, or anything of diminutive stature. Appearance: the following is an excerpt from Chapter 2 of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, in which Dorothy first meets 3 Munchkins and the Good Witch of the North. She noticed coming down toward her a group of the queerest people she had ever seen. They were not as big as the grown folk she had always been used to. But neither were they very small. In fact, they seemed about as tall as Dorothy, who was a well-grown child for her age, although they were, so far as looks go, many years older. Baum apparently did not mean that only Munchkins are short in stature, but that this is the norm for all of the adult humans of Oz. In a scene later in the book, the Guardian of the Gates, the first inhabitant of the Emerald City met by Dorothy and apparently representative of its citizens, is a little man about the same size as the Munchkins. Still later, the Quadlings of the Southern Land are described as short and fat. In W. W. Denlow's illustrations for The Wonderful Wizard, the only Oz humans depicted as remarkably taller than Dorothy are the soldier with the green whiskers and Glinda. The short stature of Oz residents is rarely mentioned in the later books of the Oz series written by Baum. However, in later Oz books, the Munchkins, and the people of Oz in general, were not described as being unusually short and were depicted as no shorter than the human characters from the United States. The one exception is the Munchkin wrestler that Zeb fought in Dorothy and the Wizard in Oz. Origin of the term: Baum never explained where the term came from, but Baum researcher Brian Attebery has hypothesized that there might be a connection to the Ma 1/4 Nchner Kindle, the emblem of the Bavarian city of Munich. The symbol was originally a 13th-century statue of a monk, looking down from the town hall in Munich. Over the years, the image was reproduced many times, for instance as a figure on beer steins, and eventually evolved into a child wearing a pointed hood. Baum's family had German origins, suggesting that Baum could have seen one such reproduction in his childhood. It is also conceivable that Munchkin is derived from the German word for mannequin, or little figure Nnchen, with chen being the diminutive suffix for man. Southern German dialects use different diminutive suffixes and a Nnchen is called Mandel, or Munchkel, the latter of which is phonetically very close to Munchkin. It is also possible that the term came from the Romanian word for laborer, muncita, replacing the Romanian suffix of agency, ita, with the English suffix of class identification, kin. Munci is the Romanian verb to labor, and is pronounced. Known Munchkins: the following is a list of Munchkins named in the Oz books: Kiara, Niara, Bok, King Cheeriobid, Isamet, Ginger, Kukulp, Margolot, Mouge, Mopsira, Nick Chopper, Nimia Me, Number 9, Ojo the Lucky Dr. Pipped, Real Bad, Sister 6. Actors: the following is a list of actors who portrayed the Munchkins in the 1939 film. Most of the 124 midgets hired were acquired for MGM by Leo Singer, the proprietor of Singer's Midgets. An additional dozen or so child actresses of average size were hired to make up for the shortage of little people that the studio found to appear in the film. These actors including those with speaking parts were credited on screen collectively, as the Munchkins. In 1989, author Stephen Cox researched, found, and wrote about the surviving Munchkin actors 50 years after they made the film. He wrote about them in his book, The Munchkins Remember, which was later revised as The Munchkins of Oz, and his book remained in print for nearly 2 decades. When he wrote the book, 33 little people who acted in the film were surviving and were interviewed. Deceased, living today, as of January 16, 2014, there is one known surviving Munchkin from the 1939 film The Wizard of Oz. The other survivor, Priscilla Ann Montgomery Clark, was a child actress at the time. Unknown appearances. The Munchkins appeared in The Wizard of Oz. When Dorothy and Toto first arrived in the Land of Oz after her house landed on the Wicked Witch of the East, the Munchkins have been hiding until Glinda the Good Witch arrived and had the Munchkins come out of their hiding place. During the musical number, Dorothy told them how she arrived in the Land of Oz and the Munchkins celebrate. The mayor of Munchkinland and his assistant had to make sure that the Wicked Witch of the East is dead before the celebration continued. The coroner tells the mayor of Munchkinland that the Wicked Witch of the East is not merely dead and that she is most sincerely dead while showing the certificate of death. The Munchkins then celebrate further as Dorothy receives gifts from the Lullaby League and the Lollipop Guild. Near the end of the song, the Wicked Witch of the West arrived, causing the Munchkins to hit the deck. After the Wicked Witch of the West left, Glinda had Dorothy follow the yellow brick road to the Emerald City as the Munchkins guide her out of Munchkinland. The Munchkins appeared in The Wiz and were played by children and teenagers. In The Muppets Wizard of Oz, the Munchkins were played by Rizzo the Rat and his fellow rats. The Munchkins appeared in Dorothy and the Witches of Oz. They were brought to Earth by Glinda in order to combat the forces of the Wicked Witch of the West. Munchkins appear as inhabitants of Glinda's protectorate in Oz the Great and Powerful. Although the film is not otherwise a musical, the Munchkins sing and dance, much as they do in the 1939 film. References